Well, joining me on the show this morning is Dr. Noor Jaffer, who is the chairman and CEO of IREAD. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
So you are a Ugandan who relocated. How come you're Ugandan?
I was raised in Masaka, and I was in university overseas. I spent most of my life in Uganda as a child.
Okay.
I was starting university overseas in '72, and of course, a lot of the Asians were expelled from Uganda. So my parents became refugees in Canada.
Okay.
And when I finished my studies in England, I joined them in Canada. So that's how I ended up there.
Now, while you are in Masaka, did they give you a name, a local name?
Actually, it's interesting you asked that. I don't know if you know anything about my background, but my great-grandfather located to Masaka in 1915. So you can imagine that's 100 years ago. And he was so well known in the local area that the Baganda there gave him the title of Mwami.
Oh!
Which is, of course, chief. And so now when I go to Uganda, if I come across some elders there and I say I'm from the Mwami family, they remember my grandfather, which is quite interesting.
That's amazing. well, you've done some amazing work as far as early childhood development is concerned. You know, I did some work in Ginger and found shocking, results of how many children attend kindergarten, and very few parents are like, why should I waste, my time? It's not important. Let them go straight to P1. Why do you think this is important, and especially you're passionate about it?
You're right. I'm very passionate about it, and you hit the nail on the head. Some people think that going to school before standard 1 is a waste of time. And yet neuroscience and a lot of research has shown that the total development of a child, that's why we don't call it early childhood education, we call it development, ECD, is because it encompasses not just the cognitive and learning and intellectual part, but also the health and nutrition, and also the social and emotional development of the child. So some major organizations like the World Bank and the World Health Organization have done large longitudinal studies where they've followed these children over a long time. And you'll be interested to know that some of the indicators are amazing. They find when they followed these children for a long time and then looked back, the control group, which is the group that had no ECD as compared to the group they were following, the group that had ECD had higher intelligence scores, even at age 19. They had timelier and better school enrollment, less dropout and repetition rates, better school completion rates, so more of them graduated from high school. They had improved nutritional status. They had better social emotional behavior, better relationship with the parent and child. And what we found really amazing was this group had a higher economic potential of earning and economic independence. And the last one that I found interesting is a higher female labor force participation. So when you look at all this, why it's amazing, Brian, is because all they did was they got 2 or 3 years extra at the beginning. After that, they were in the same schools as all the other kids.
Yeah.
So you are seeing lifelong changes even after you stop doing anything different.
Is it maybe because what we see is that essentially what the child gets at the pre-primary section is done again, say in P1 and P2. So parents see, why should I waste my time? Let the kids come and work with me here.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying that these were kids before age 6 or 7, before standard 1. And the science behind that is that neuroscience has shown that by age 3, 60% of your brain is fully developed. By age 9, 90% is. By age 6, 90% is. And by age 6 also, 90% of the synapses that you need for your brain to function have already developed.
Yeah.
So if you wait till standard 1 or primary 1 to send your child, you're missing a period when they can soak up energy like a information like a sponge.
Yeah.
So you're missing that very crucial part.
Well, doctor, what is the global trend?
I would say in the developed world it's very good. This has been recognized by neuroscience. But in the developing world, it is a real shame. Like you mentioned, only 57% have access. In Uganda, it comes down that there was a forum on early childhood that reported that only 22% of urban population in Uganda and 8% of rural population have even got access to ECD. And of that, only 41% use that access. In fact, there was a report published here in 2012 that showed that only 9% of children in Uganda were getting ECD. That's a very, very big gap.
Some amazing statistics there. If we can have that graph back on the screen. Regional analysis of distribution of early childhood centers in Uganda show that the central region had the highest number of centers, totaling to 2,858. If that graph is on, we'll just see the distribution there. Very shocking. That's 39%, followed by the eastern region with a total of 1,640. The western region followed with 1,098, while the north ranked fourth with 831. The southwestern region had a total of 751 centers, while the northeastern region, with the smallest geographical area, had the least number of centers, totaling to 190.
So what's interesting about that graph is you're going from the poorer areas on the left to the richer areas on the right. So you can see that where the parents can afford ECD, there is so many more, which happens to be the Kampala area. And the West Nile area, where we are also working, only has 3% enrollment rate.
That's very
That is
little.
terribly low. That's amazing. And that is why our organization has chosen West Nile as one of the regions we want to work in.
Talk about that work. What is the progress now? 3%, it looks like you have a lot of work to cover.
We have. And we're not the only organization there. Thankfully, there is another big funding from the Canadian government called SASEA, which is improving the teacher training up there. Okay. The Aga Khan Foundation Uganda is up there. And one of our collaborators, the Madrasa Early Childhood Program, which is teaching our teachers in proper ECD training, is also up in West Nile. But to give you an idea about IREAD, if I may, talk about our organization.
Please.
I head up a Canadian charity called the Institute for Rural Education and Development. We call it IREAD for short. IREAD has a model where it takes us a while before we go into a community. We send people in before to sensitize the community. Now, I agree with you. In Uganda, the concept is, what are they going to learn before 6? Why not wait until they're old enough to go to primary school? So you have to sensitize the villagers to say, no, this is very important. Your children have to be in school at age 3. Once you get a villagers all saying, yes, we understand, we are missing out, we want to have a school, then you have to make sure there is an organized center management or school management committee in the village who is prepared to take ownership of the school.
Yeah.
So we don't own the school. They donate the land and they create a committee, and they provide all the unskilled labor. So the villagers amongst themselves divide the work of the digging and the mixing of the cement, creating the foundation. We provide, IREAD provides materials not locally available, such as timber, windows, doors, carpets, that kind of stuff. We provide the stonemason, the cement people, the electrician, plumber, etc.
Yeah.
So our model is community-based. The people themselves have built the school, some of them with their own hands digging. We feed them while they're there, but they take ownership.
Yeah.
They take pride in ownership, and we build beautiful schools. I am not boasting, but I'll tell you from what I've seen of schools that are in Uganda, we hope that these villagers will take pride that, wow, we got a beautiful ECD center.
Check out some of the images for the schools, and of course you'll help us explain as those images flash on your screen.
Right.
I'm looking, I'm thinking about the immense work that you have, convincing people to understand that this is very important, because you're also working with parents who partly never got a lot of education.
Correct.
And they never, obviously, even attended kindergarten.
Right.
What kind of challenge do you have?
I'll tell you one of the major challenges, and if we do see pictures of the classrooms, that is the exterior of our first center we are opening tomorrow in Kitatye, Kayunga. And these are artists' impressions, but trust me, they look just like that on the ground. We build. Now look at that classroom. Carpets, bright lights, no desks, no chairs. You see that?
Yeah.
And it's carpeted. There's lots of open space. The tables are only 1 foot off the ground. You see that? It's got bright, lots of light. That is a full classroom. Now, you're telling me what is my challenge? When you show this to the villagers and they come and they see how ECD is trained, how ECD is taught to the children. Remember, this is not new. Madame Montessori in Italy created this 100 years ago.
And now it's
accepted scientifically all over the world.
Yeah.
The high scope program in US, there is a learning through play program in Canada. So we incorporate all these learnings into the design and the activity centers. So around the classroom you see different
Beautiful
activity
spaces.
centers. Beautiful spaces. You see places for reading, places for playing. Now, when parents come to see this, you know what the comment is? How can they learn? There's no desks. There's no chairs.
There's no chalk.
There's no blackboard. There's no chalk. I had parents say, "Aro, these kids are playing." I said, "No, they're not playing. They're learning." And they say, "Well, how can they learn? They're not even listening to the teacher," which is fine. Because they have a group session as a circle, and then they ask, "What do you want to do today?"
Yeah.
So little Joseph says, "I want to go play with the sand outside." Go ahead. This kid says, "I want to go into the shop," and then he tries to sell things to his fellow classmates, and they make change, and they learn how money works and numbers and addition and subtraction. Trust me, Brian, this is not something we're experimenting with. This has been proven. But in Uganda, I agree with you. The challenge is, even if we create beautiful schools, is to get the parents to buy in. That's the first challenge. The second challenge, if I may tell you, is I find, and this is not saying bad things about Uganda, but I find that when something is given to you, you don't look after it that well, unless you built it yourself or you took some energy to make it.
Well, that's true.
And we find that a lot of buildings, when I come around, and I grew up in Uganda, I see new buildings after 2 or 3 years, they look like they're 10 years old. So we're hoping that we will inculcate in the community, take pride in this building. It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful schools in Uganda.
Yeah.
Look after it. If it needs a coat of paint after 2 or 3 years, do that. Change the light bulbs. If the glass is broken, fix it. Because otherwise you get into this attitude, well, hey, they'll come and fix it. I'll just wait.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. And that also is a learning to the children.
Well, that looks like you're not even just doing the role of establishing ECD centers, but also educating the communities to be responsible.
Right.
You're not just...
And it's a model. It's a model. So this first one, we call it a resource center, the one that we're opening in Kayunga tomorrow, because apart from the 2 classrooms, the big ones, we have a seminar room, with the proper seminar facilities. We will be using that to train teachers from around the region. So we build ECD centers and we build some resource centers, and the Madrasa Early Childhood Program of the Arkan Foundation will help us train the teachers. So now you're right, you're educating the people, you're showing them what a model school will look like. You're showing them how you can build a school economically that will look nice. Now I hope the villagers, this is my challenge to the villagers, you show the rest of Uganda that you can maintain it.
Do it.
Yeah.
And so is that your pilot project?
This is the first one, but we've got 3 ready to open in West Nile. Remember I told you we're in West Nile?
Yes.
So there are 3 locations right on the border. One's on the Congo border. In fact, if you cross the road across the school, you're in Congo. And that is one of our mandates in IREAD. The 9 schools that we've already opened in Pakistan, they're right up northwest on the Afghan border. We go to places other people don't go to because it's too hard to travel.
Yes.
It's unstable sometimes.
It takes lots of resources to...
And if you think about West Nile, it's been through a hard time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Since the time of Idi Amin to the NRA to now, it's been very difficult there. And it's been shown that children, apart from the nutritional status, which we didn't talk about, the stunting.
And that's where I was going about, because because also one of the challenges for the UPE is you know, the government decided, let's do some cost sharing, we take care of the school fees, you give your child something to eat. Are you planning to cover that for the villagers? Have you told them, okay, as far as the food is concerned, maybe you'll cover this? Because the statistics are quite shocking. 171 million children under 5, and that's 5 years ago. Those are the statistics we're quoting, were affected by severe or moderate stunting. And the stunted growth is due to malnutrition, which...
And it stunts they can't get their full potential.
Yes.
Those numbers you quoted, like you said, are 5 years old. In fact, the World Bank creates what's called a SABRE report for each country. So there was a SABRE report in 2012 for Uganda that said 38% of children under 5 were stunted. Then the next year, which is 2013, so this was 2012, 2013, Uganda put out a very well researched paper called the Integrated Early Childhood Development Program, and they quoted 33%. So I don't care whether you say 33 or 38, that's 1/3 of Uganda's under 5 population is stunted in growth. They will never reach their full potential. Yes, the pictures weren't that clear, but we built kitchens, and every child gets served a hot meal at lunch. Now, how would the schools get maintained? They charge, the school management committee or the SMC will charge a minimal fee just to cover the teachers' wages and the running of the school and the lunch. We, IREAD, will continue to train the teachers, give them in-service upgrading, and always maintain the level of teaching.
All right. On your website, you say if all nurseries and early childhood development centers meet the quality criteria. What's this quality criteria you're bringing? What, something that is also different from the normal kindergartens of this world. Is there something different that your centers have?
No, it's not that. It's the philosophy of learning through play, right? So the philosophy of there are no desks, there are no chairs, there's activity centers, and the teachers, it is really child-centered, child-directed, and teacher observation. So this is very interesting. The other thing we do is we are now putting in a lot of books in each school so that parents can lend out the books, sign them out.
Right.
And we do parent training. So the Madrasa program brings the parents in and teaches them. Every day you talk to your child, what did you learn in school?
Yeah.
And then you read a book to them before they go to bed. The next day the teacher will ask in a circle, what did your daddy read to you? What did your mommy read to you? And they share the book. So yes, the criteria we're talking about is meeting a high scope, it's called the high scope program in the United States. They have certain benchmarks on how children should progress through age 3, 4, and 5, and we will be monitoring that through the Madrasa program.
What are you doing to empower, the parents? Because also you look at issues like poverty.
Right.
And that kind of blocks your attitude towards education. Like, or if a parent studied this much, they can probably say, I didn't study as much as
the child, right.
the guys that are setting up these things for you.
Yeah.
But look at where we are. We own a farm, we do this, and that's going to be a major challenge.
It is not. I think it's encouraging when I come back and I talk to little children. And by the way, we bring the parents in for a whole week of training, 6 nights a week before we open the school. And they're taught that, listen, your role, because early childhood development doesn't happen in those 4 hours in school or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Most of it happens at home, right? So the parents have to know that this is mostly your responsibility. We're helping you, right? So to answer your question in a different way, there was a study done, again, that integrated paper. There was Dr. Godfrey Iju of Kiambogo University here, did a very good elaborate study in 2012. He showed that the benefit of a child going through ECD was 1.6 times the input, which means whatever your investment is in early childhood, you'll get 60% more back. That actually is conservative, based on very basic principles.
Yeah.
There's another study by Shinewick, Barnes, and Weikart in '93 that showed a 7.16 return. For every shilling you spend, you get 7 shillings return in better earnings, higher intelligence scores, better nutritional status, less problems with health. So the problem.
Maybe we should use money as the SI unit. Then parents will kind of.
They might, but you see, the other problem is the results that these results have been proven, but they happen after 20 years, right? After 25 years. So it's not as sexy to the politicians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not immediate.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is a problem. You have to wait to see the results. I might be dead and gone before these beautiful children of Kayunga and West Nile reach their potential.
Yeah.
But I know they will.
Yeah.
There is studies to show they will.
Well, some interesting ideas there for you. This morning, I have done some work in Jinja as far as early childhood development is concerned, and I can tell you that there's a lot of work to be done. Do you work with some people, any partners? Because
Yes.
I can understand the enormous resource that you need.
Right. I have to mention,
Not just in money, but in human capital.
Human capital and land. I have to mention here that the center we're opening tomorrow, the land has been donated by the Madada Foundation, which is a local foundation started by the Honorable Suleiman Madada, who's a minister of Uganda. And he donated the land and provided the sensitization in his community. Yes, we need people. I have a country representative, Miss May Verji, who is a Ugandan born and raised, and she's been here, has a wealth of knowledge on construction, and she's helping us keep our costs down. People can't believe that for about $40,000 we can build these and train the teachers, which is much lower than any other group, because we have all this support and input from the local people.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Noor Jaffer, thank you so much
My
for joining
pleasure.
us this morning.